Welcome to the MuseCast, where we squeeze every last drop of inspiration out of Sunday's sermon.
I was watching you, though. I was watching you, and you were quick to the draw on that one, Dan.
Yeah. Hey, little update on your shelves. I see some Christmassy things on there.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Hold on.
Oh, nice.
Oh, can you see that light?
I did see that. Yes. Yeah. And then
Very
on your left shoulder, what are those? Those statues.
These are a couple of nutcrackers, glittery nutcrackers, and then some cutie little birds that are dressed for the holiday season.
Nice. Oh, that's awesome. I'm a little sad.
Oh, because the skull's not there?
Well, the skull, I missed the skull. That's cool. Look at that. He's dressed as a little Christmas tree. That's
cute?
awesome.
Okay, why are you sad?
Oh, I'm sad because I reorganized the lighting in my office, and I'm just realizing now that I'm totally shining out Columbo over here. See how he's all shined out?
Oh, yeah, we got to fix that.
Rethink
Columbo, yeah, he needs his proper lighting for us to be able to pay homage to him.
Yeah.
And my favorite thing, though, is we always know what time it is. We're always right on time, and we never have to wonder. We're good.
Yep.
Just look behind Dan Kent.
On the MuseCast.
That's right.
It's 8:40 somewhere.
Hey, it's 8:40 somewhere. Do with that what you will, folks, because it is 8:40 somewhere. Oh, happy Muse Day, everyone. He is Dan Kent. I am Shawna Boren. He is carrying me today, you guys. I have a bit of a basketball hangover. I went to a basketball game last night, and it was so lovely. My team didn't win, mind you. That's not why it was lovely. It was just lovely to be able to see my favorite player ever.
Now, you live in Minnesota, and the Timberwolves won, so your team did win, right?
No,
right?
Well, let's say my secondary team won. Yep. Yeah. My B team won. My B team trounced my A team. And so that's okay though. Hey, listen, LeBron can only do so much at the ripe old age of 40. So, they're going to have to get it together, my Lakers. But it was a ton of fun. It was a blast. I'm just a little tired, and Dan is so gracious and kind to carry me today. So
yeah, that's right.
Thank you for that, Dan.
Let me ask you a question about this. First of all, sometimes we go into basketball chat here a little bit, and
we do.
But I forget why you are a Lakers fan. Is it just because of LeBron?
So no, okay. So it's kind of twofold. One, I am a LeBron fan through and through. Throughout his career, I think he of course is an amazing player, but also the man that he is, the things that he's done for his community, I just think are really sweet and impressive. Total come from nothing to anyway. But no, I was originally a Lakers fan way back. So I am from Houston, Texas. So I had a brief stint where I acknowledged the Rockets as my team. However, for the most part, it has been the Lakers for me because of Magic Johnson. He played for the Lakers, and I have never, this is so embarrassing. I've never known my biological father. And so I played basketball growing up. And so in my brain, I just thought, most likely
right.
It's Magic, right? Why wouldn't it be? So, I'm not judging his, his extracurricular activities that he was known for. I'm just saying, as a kid, I just kind of thought that's probably the case there. And so, yeah, I was a huge Laker fan. And so when LeBron went to the Lakers, I was just, it was, perfect match made in heaven for me. So, yeah. That's that story.
That's awesome. Well, that's a good story. I'm glad I
There
asked.
you go. There you go.
I'll just one more basketball point.
Mm-hmm.
LeBron needs to work on his 3-point shooting. I think he's 0 for his last 40 some shots. It's
okay,
really amazing.
Sir, calm down. He's not over. Listen, this is what I will say. They played Friday night I think in LA, and then they were on the road. And this was the second night of a back-to-back. So they played Friday night and then they played Sunday night and Monday night, and they were traveling. And so I think his legs were a little tired. He couldn't quite get there, but you watch Dan Kent. He's going to be
Yeah.
just fine.
I would never doubt LeBron. I really,
Okay.
if he's 65, I would not doubt him. He is, he's a specimen. He's a unique specimen for sure. So
Holy buckets. The fact that
Yep.
he's so much younger than I and is in the shape that he is in, it's
Yeah.
a little embarrassing, but it's
Yeah.
his job. So, you know
Yeah.
what I'm most excited to talk about today, Dan Kent?
What's that?
I mean, as much as I love the Lakers and LeBron, I'm excited because we had I don't know if you heard, the infamous Dan Kent spoke to us. He opened our Christmas series, Seeking Christmas, and he brought us the most delightful, inspiring, Christmassy message about Anna. And I just loved it. And as I'm introducing this, Dan, I need to know, what is your middle name?
Joseph.
Is it? Okay, so when we're giving you this kind of respect, Daniel Joseph Kent
Yes.
delivered this amazing message to open our Christmas series. And I'm excited to talk about that today because once again, you surprise me with your perspective and view on stuff and how you share that with us and what we learn when we get to hear from you. So I'm very excited to talk about that with you today.
Well, thank you so much. Yeah, it's weird. Like, you know I knew this, but like, I get so into the content that I have a hard time understanding what I even have,
Okay.
because
Yeah.
you're just so into it, and I don't really get a sense of what is this exactly. And from my perspective, like, I kind of felt like this is probably, it didn't feel as good as some of the other messages that I've shared, and I kind of considered this as sort of a, well, I'll do my best and whatever. And I was really surprised at the response that I got on this one. And I'll share one of those responses in a little bit. But yeah, I really wanted to, and this is what's weird about this series, is I'm trying to keep it open-ended. But in that open-endedness, I would like to kind of just notice the secondary characters in the Christmas story. That's sort of the goal. Just like, what can we learn about them? And a lot of what we learn about them is going to be speculative because, the text is not direct and not explicit about these characters. There's a lot of like just implications that they make, but nothing that's really explicit. So we have to speculate a little bit. But I have this hunch that if we understood what their desires were, what their fears were, what their expectations were, if we understood those things, it would help us also understand how the birth of the Messiah gave them fulfillment. And if we could understand that, it might also help us find fulfillment in the Christmas story and in the Christmas season. That was sort of the background of the series. And now that's very loosey-goosey and open-ended. So I kind of tried this out with Anna. And I tell you what, out of all of the characters, man, talk about implicative. There's just so much implication in these 3 verses. Just 3 verses about Anna, and we learned so much. And I'm not going to summarize everything, other than I was really drawn to the fact that she lost her husband at such a young age, and it seemed like it was a very sweet marriage. It was a good marriage, and there was a lot of love there, and they didn't even have kids yet. And in fact, 7 years, that's how long they were together. I don't know if you ever watched the cartoon with Pepe Le Pew, the skunk. 7 years, that's not even enough time for Pepe Le Pew to realize that Penelope is actually a cat. He could probably still think that she's a skunk after 7 years. So just this really young, raw marriage, and it ended, and it seems like she must have had just a lot of grief and despair about that. And I love what the text says, is she went immediately to the temple. And I can't help but think that part of that was because that's how she could get closest to her husband. as it brings her closest to the one thing that could redeem that relationship, and that is God. But then there's a lot of other stuff there too, just that is implied by the text, that she was very adored and she was loved and she served, and she just had this incredible devotion to God that just really inspired me. Um, and but then there are these two other things that I felt like are really something like that Anna serves as a role model for me, at least. The first one is she demonstrates waiting on the Lord. And for me, like, I'm very impatient. I'm ambitious and I want to get things, and I'm going to figure out how to do it, and I'm going to go after it. And what I have found in my life is that when I've done that, even when I'm successful, it usually doesn't fulfill me, and it's usually more fulfilling when I wait for things to come to me. And that's the way Anna, I mean, she just demonstrates this on such a radical level. She's, waiting on the Lord in this temple courtyard, serving others, serving at the temple for at least 60 years, maybe 80 years. And what a great model of steadfastness, patience, and perseverance. It's so inspiring. But at some point there, she realized that she has this gift of prophecy, which, how I interpret that, is just being aware of what God is doing in the world around you and in the lives of people around you. And she somewhere discovers she has this gift, and while she's serving, she is nurturing this gift. And finally, after all these decades, and I'm sure she used it in some way or another throughout her life there in the temple, but boy, just like this climactic use of the gift at the end of her life, where she gets to declare that the Messiah is amongst them. And so convicted is she of this, that the text implies that she totally, the rest of her life, she spends teaching about Jesus, this child. And I think what I was really touched by with that is that there are so many of us who have these gifts, and it can be really frustrating to feel like you have a gift and not have situations with which you can express that gift and use that gift. And it can be kind of a grief, a pain, when you want to be doing this, and you have this desire and you have ability, and there's nothing you can do with it. It's hard. And so in my mind, and it's not explicit, but the sense I get from the text in Anna is that she demonstrates just continuing to nurture that gift, even when you don't get a chance to express it. Paul tells Timothy to do not neglect your gift, because that's the temptation. Well, I want to teach, but there's no place I can teach, so forget it. Why should I read these books? Why should I study these things if I can't teach anyway? Well, you should do all of that, because you never know when the Lord will use you, and you never know what opportunities might be provided for you. And Anna, to me, just seems like a great example of part of her waiting on the Lord is also continuing to nurture her gifts, whether or not she has opportunities to express those gifts. And then I shared a couple just anecdotes, little stories of people who kind of I see living this out and making the most of their gift in situations that are kind of terrible, really. I shared about my friend Gary, who was quadriplegic and ended up continuing to paint with his mouth, which was just amazing. And then I just shared about Jimmy Amati, who is this jazz musician I really like, and told the story of how he, as a teenager, lost the ability to play piano, which is his love, jazz piano. And he ended up getting surgery 40 some years later where he could play again. And he was masterful, and people were amazed at his ability to play. And his response was, I've been practicing and playing in my head all these years. And just that idea of carrying a song in your heart, and not being able to express that song, it's so beautiful. As you just keep carrying that inside and trusting in the promises that God will provide an opening for that song to come out. And so it was just, I mean, I remember when I first heard the story. I mean, I learned about Jimmy Amati about a year and a half ago, and just reading his story, I just remember thinking, oh man, that's gonna preach. That'll preach. And finally I got an opportunity to share it. And I think there's a lot of people who really kind of resonated with that in the same way that I did. And I was very happy about that. And I hope that more people listen to Jimmy, because his music is really good. And ultimately, with the role model of Anna, she just shows us that she had this great loss. But when you are devoted to God, when you are faithful to God, there is no reason to be had by your despair. There is no reason to be had by your grief, and there's every reason to continue waiting on the Lord. And I think ultimately that is the just what really inspires me about Anna. And then I just finished the sermon with reading Isaiah, this passage in Isaiah that's very popular, that ends with the people who wait on the Lord, they will soar as on eagle's wings, and that the Lord refreshes those who wait on the Lord. And I think that's a good promise to carry with us in the Christmas season, but in all seasons. And that is my summary. What'd you think?
Good job, Dan. I loved your summary and I really, really enjoyed your message. I'm going to say, you know me, and you know that I love when whomever is speaking and teaching and preaching, they get a little personal. And so I discovered a few things about you that I did not know. First of all, I know that you're a great writer and I know that you're very creative. That was a known. What was unknown was that you listened to jazz music while writing, and a particular style of jazz music, because you don't like the horns and you do like the random applause that you seem to get. It's
Yes.
kind of an affirmation to what you're doing.
It's
so
shallow.
great.
It's shallow, but
Nope.
I admit it, and that's just the way it is. I like the
That's the
applause.
way it is. I'm going to
won't-
send you jazz music that's only horns. Just horns.
No.
We'll
And-
see how it goes.
I have a friend who's a jazz horn player, and he's very taken aback by my dislike of horns, and it's hurt our relationship.
Oh no. Oh
So,
no.
but like
Well,
I said,
I don't think you dislike it. I just think when you're in that creative space, you're right. Those
That's it.
horns, they can come in and
Yeah.
whoa, they
Yeah,
can
they steal the
powerfully
show.
take over. Yeah. So
Yeah.
that was very, yeah. I liked it. But really, you're right. That story, wow, about Jimmy Amati.
Amati. It's a weird name. AMA.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, Amati. Wow. That is, oh, wow, so impressive. And then a beautiful story about your friend, or your mom's friend, who is
Yeah.
also your friend, Gary. And your mom was there and she got to
Yeah.
hear it. And so that is so cool. I want to thank you because I feel like you said in your sermon, usually whenever people tell any account of this story, it's Anna is kind of the secondary character, and the way that you highlighted her and took those 3 lines of verse and really amplified the gift that she had, and then just the dignity in her waiting on the Lord. I think that was really encouraging and inspiring. And we all know that people are seeking a variety of things. And so I thought that, first of all, let me just say, big picture, I love that we're doing this, taking this angle on a Christmas series. There's only so many things you can do with the Christmas series, but I'm really excited about this. I think it's going to be really great, and you started it off beautifully. But then also just to see that in her waiting and her steadfastness and patience, and allowing her gift to come forth, I think is such an encouragement to folks. And I thought you did that really well. Very pastorally of you to just encourage folks that, like, you have a gift, you do. And if you haven't been able to utilize that gift, we feel that pain with you, and just wait and allow the Lord's time to come forth with that. And so I don't know, I'm probably stumbling over my words, and you said it much more eloquently than I, but I just thought it was a beautiful encouragement this time of year.
Well, yeah, that's great. And I one of the things that I did share was, and I think this is true too. And this is just my own reflections on not neglecting your gift. What I have found is that there have been times when I have had that pain, that frustration that, I'm not able to use my gift or whatever. Um, and that's really hurt. I'm grateful that I didn't let that hurt, keep me from continuing to nurture my gift, because later on in life, I got a chance to share that here at Woodland Hills, just thinking about that. And I think I mentioned this in the sermon also. Boy, if I would have had the opportunity when I wanted it, man, I just did not have the maturity to handle it.
Yeah.
And it probably wouldn't have blessed me as much, and it also wouldn't have been the best use of my gift if I would have been able to do that back then. Now there might have been some advantages if I, led a church younger than my opportunity here, but yeah, overall, I feel like, man, and I don't even want to say it's the Lord's timing, but it's just the time that it happened. It worked
Right.
out better. And so, no, that might not be true for everybody. But I guess I'm trying to open up a conversation about gifts, because, um, I think that I'd say two things. One, like that frustration of not being able to use the gift. Part of it is, the timing might not be right, but
Right.
part of it also might be that we get really fixated on, here's my gift, and that we're probably right about the gift, and then we say this is how that gift is used, and that's where we might not be right. That's where we
Right.
might be so fixed on one particular application of the gift that we miss out on all of the opportunities that we could be using that gift in different ways. And that's partly why I liked Gary's story, is because he used to
Mhm.
paint, and he would do all of this, and we can't do that anymore. Well, now he has to rethink, what does it mean to be an artist when you can't use your limbs, and he developed a wholly different system. I know other people who, especially now, I mean, think of like all of the, people who want to teach or they want to lead churches, who they're not able to do that, and they ended up starting YouTube channels, and there's
Mhm.
just so many different opportunities to use these
Mhm.
gifts. And so that's one part of what I was thinking is
Yeah.
just, be open about using them. And yeah, I don't know how
Well,
I
and
got onto all that, but
no, it's so good, because another thing I wanted to touch on that I really appreciated from your sermon is, when you referenced the Timothy verse, which is one of my favorite, about not letting anyone despise your youth, but you also expanded that, like your age, you are never too old to move in the gift that you have. And I think that's, like, Anna was a beautiful example of that. Your gender, I mean, my Lord, she was a woman in a very patriarchal society who was a widow. So, like, wow, that's just really impressive. Your socioeconomic status, your social status, or even your confidence. Like, when God puts something in you, I think it is a beautiful thing, when that shines forth. And there are certain barriers that, as humans, that we think would disqualify, and I just love it that God kind of removes those barriers. Now, I agree that the timing, we don't always know, and we don't always have control of that, and the manner by which the gift comes out, we don't always, many times we don't know, we assume, but we don't have control of that if we're really doing this in a way that humbly is to serve others. It could very well look different, and sometimes things in life happen that alter the way in which that gift comes out or is used. And so, I think ultimately it just all ties back to trusting God and knowing that, He who began the work in us is
mhm.
faithful to complete it, and He will
Yeah.
sustain us. And so, I don't know, I just was really encouraged by it. I think it was an encouragement for many. I saw, again, I'm always on the chat and stuff. And there were, it was resonating with quite a few folks, and in person, hearing how it was just really uplifting and resonating. And I don't know if, because people whatever's going on in the world, it can just kind of feel heavy and just a bit hopeless. And so for you to offer hope for people to see something in themselves that God sees in them, and to trust that and to move in that, I just think it was a gift. And so
Yeah.
I thought it was great.
Oh, good. Well, the other thing I'll say in the spirit of like, all of the different kind of obstacles that we have to sharing our gift and the resistance that we get in the world, with, your gender and your age and all of that. It's just like, and I said this on the stage, it's like we go from I'm too young to do that to I'm too old to do that, just like that, and we just have that
Gosh.
one little time where we're the right age, and
Hmm.
but even then it's like there's a thousand other reasons why to disqualify ourselves. And part of what I loved about Anna is that she didn't even think about any of that stuff. She just went and did what she was called to do. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, I didn't know how to share it, but the message kind of triggered this grief in me, largely about like the American slave trade.
Mm.
And just thinking of like all of those people that were so hideously oppressed and taken from their home, with that same kind of sense of distance from home that Anna had. And they were just brutally kept from really expressing their gifts and nurturing their gifts and developing their gifts. And so there is this great grief there. That's a type of death, I think, because when you have a gift from God, it is a part of your life. It's part of who you are, and not having the opportunity to develop that is a type of
Mhm.
death and grief. But then at the same time, looking at the Black kind of people in America who were in that situation, just seeing how, despite those horrendous kind of oppressive forces, you still had within there these people whose gifts did flourish and poke through the oppression.
Mhm.
And it just really is a testimony to the power of God's gift and how, you know, you might not always be able to break through, but it can, and there's always hope, and you never know. And so it's always good to not neglect that and to continue to nurture it. And if you have people in the Black community under the slavery system, and then even later under Jim Crow, who were under those circumstances able to poke through and express their gifts, then how much more so can we today without those same constraints? And so that's all really inspiring as well. And I didn't have the right way to put that in there, but I was
Yeah.
feeling that as I was sharing this stuff.
Yeah, I love that. I think there are as with many sermons, most I will say, there are so many avenues you could take. And then, especially when you're given kind of this creative license to, like you said, you took these 3 lines of scripture and then presented something about Anna that you were seeing, that you were extrapolating, that you were inspired by. And that could go a million different directions. There's really like no boundaries there. And so I get it, why I understand having that on your heart, but not kind of knowing how to weave that in. I mean, you could go in the direction of like the gifts and what is that? And you even mentioned that in your sermon, like we may, unpack that a little more. And yeah, there's just so much that you can do, but that's part of the beauty of this series. I feel like it's character driven, and then we get to kind of discover what pops out about these characters
Yeah.
in the Christmas story. And so the open-endedness of it means that there are going to be some possibilities out there that get left on the table, and that's okay, because we'll
Mhm.
hear other things and be inspired, maybe that we didn't think of ourselves. So
Yeah.
I think that's okay.
Yep. I think
You
that's right.
you had mentioned that you have a testimony. Was it
I'm gonna share
about?
that as my nugget. That's my
Oh,
nugget.
okay, that's your
Yeah.
nugget. Okay, so
Yeah.
what is it about? This Was it about
It's about
in
the sermon.
reference
Yep.
to your sermon? Okay, great,
Yep. It is.
awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, is there anything else, Dan? I know this one wasn't really like where you had a ton of stuff that you
Yeah.
cut or anything,
Right.
but is there anything else that you just saw in Anna that maybe you didn't get to say, or
Yeah. There is, and not about Anna, but about the series as a whole.
Okay.
I did cut this part out when I was talking about the series to come. And it's just looking at the Gospel of John. One of the things that John does is he captures these questions from Jesus that are kind of duplicitous in the sense that they're very common questions, but Jesus is looking for something uncommon in the answer. And so, for instance, there's the scene in the first chapter where Jesus kind of encounters John the Baptist, and there are these two disciples of John the Baptist who start following Jesus because John says this is the Lamb of God. And so they start following Jesus, and then Jesus at some point turns to them and says, "What do you want?" Now, how you read that, what do you want? I mean, it depends on how you read that, but we know just how John uses these types of questions throughout his gospel, that Jesus means more than simply, what do you want?
Yeah.
He wants to know, what is it that you want? What are you looking for in the Messiah? Obviously, you're following me because John said that I'm the Lamb of God. What is it that you want out of the Lamb of God? And I think that's largely what this series is about, is what is it that we want from Christmas? What is it that we want from the Messiah? And I don't mean what do we want in terms of like what all of us want, which is peace and the restoration of God's kingdom, but like personally, what do you want? And and that's going to be different for each of us, but it adds to the joy of the holiday the more you can tap into what is it that you personally want. What another way of asking that is, what are the hurts that you have that need to be healed, and what are the losses that you've sustained that need to be made whole? And questions like that, I think that's what Jesus is getting at, and that's what I hope we can kind of touch on as we go forward in the series.
I love that. Yeah. What is it that your heart is seeking? What is the need there? What is it that we are coming to him with and offering to him, for him to wrap around as only he can? And I again, it's a Christmas series. We know the story. And so coming at it from a variety of angles is always a challenge, but this I just feel like is really timely. So I'm grateful for it. All right, Dan. And let me just say, good job. Way to kick us off. You said it perfectly. You bookended our series. You ended Wrath of the Lamb and you kicked off not Wreath of the Lamb, but Seeking Christmas. Danta made an appearance and he encouraged us all. So thank you for that. Good job. MuseCast high five. And with that, we go to Nugget time. Yeah.
All right.
You get to choose, Dan. You did the sermon. You did a sermon. You did a couple of MuseCasts. You did.
Yeah. Do you feel like your nugget is a closer or a setup?
My nugget could be a setup because it kind of, interestingly enough, it ties a little bit into what you were just saying about the Black community and all of that. Because, and I say that because there's this account that I follow on socials, and it's a resource, and it's called Black Liturgies. And so this is one of those liturgies that I've been meditating on during this time of year. And I even thought that it tied nicely to parts of what you were saying. So I can start and then you can finish it with your testimony. Okay.
Sounds good.
So it just says, it can feel foolish to pursue, it can feel foolish to pause, to marvel at the stars when the world is burning, or to find the world beautiful when you've known it to betray you. But wonder is a liberation practice, a reminder that we contain more than tragedy. Beauty is our origin and our anchor. And that to me just, for me, it perfectly illustrated kind of what you were saying. Like, in the grief, in the waiting, in the uncertainty, to have hope and to believe and to marvel and to wonder. That can be difficult, but that is the gift, and it is really powerful when we can do that in the midst of uncertainty. And for those of you who feel like you have something in your heart and you have something that you want to utilize to serve and bless others, but that timing hasn't quite been there, or the opportunities, or just that waiting and that wondering can be difficult. But I think that if we can remember that we are more than the things that are holding us back, I just think that can be a really helpful thing to remember, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. So.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. What Black Liturgies? That's what the account is called?
Yes.
Okay. I'm
Yes.
gonna have to look that up.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Look for it on Insta. You'll find it on Instagram, Dan.
Okay. All right. Well, I have a testimony to share from Robert Halligan. And Robert Halligan is a musician that I've been associated with or acquainted with on social media for maybe like a half a decade. And he's very talented. He's a great songwriter. But he wrote this. He said, "Hey, Dan, it's Rob from Twitter or X or whatever it's called. I'm actually from Coventry in the UK, and we're regular parishioners of Woodland Hills. I nearly always enjoy the Woodland Hills Sunday messages, so thanks to all of you. This Sunday's message about Anna was good for me to hear, and I thought I'd let you know why. I'm a full-time musician and a part-time theology student. Both of these I started late in life. As a teenager, I got into a lot of trouble with the police, and at 15 years old, I was living on the streets. When I was 16 years old, I met some amazing people. They helped me turn my life around and introduced me to Jesus. Praise God. However, the church that I became a part of became very controlling and abusive. I was part of it for around 30 years, but it has since closed down in the wake of criminal investigations. In 2001, my dad was killed in the 9/11 attacks. As a Christian, I wanted to speak into what was going on after that because I believed that there was power in forgiveness and reconciliation, and that God's love was bigger than the mess that we had around us. The best way that I felt I could say all of this was through my music. And so in 2004, at 34 years old, I left my real job to concentrate on that. I played live sessions on the BBC. I shot a video in New York City with an Emmy-winning producer. I played some big festivals. Every time I kept thinking this would be my big break, but it never happened. I was invited to a Michael Bolton show and sat with some of his team, and one of them asked me how old I was. And when I told him that I was in my 40s, he said, "Oh man, you've missed it. You're too old to make it." But here's the thing. You start with a dream to make it, but really you don't even know what that dream really means. 21 years down the line, I'm still doing this. Nobody really knows who I am, but my songs have been sung at weddings, at funerals. Someone has a verse that I wrote tattooed on their arm, and someone else has one of my verses inscribed on their gravestone. I still only play to around 75 people at any given gig, but I keep doing it. I often wonder if I'm doing the right thing. I think about getting a real job, and then something happens. Just a small thing, but it's normally priceless, and so I carry on. Last year, at 54 years old, I started to study theology, having left school nearly 40 years ago with absolutely no degree. I've no idea where it will lead, but it's okay. We found a new church with an amazing ministry in reconciliation. So, as for Anna, I get it, and I needed to hear it. So, thanks. God bless Rob Halligan. And I will share a link to his music. He's a great songwriter, and I'll share that in the description. And so that was a great testimony, and I appreciated that, Rob. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you, Rob. That was beautiful. And just wow. Wow, wow, wow. And I love it. It perfectly illustrates what you shared about Anna and what you've encouraged us all with. We are not bound by the boundaries of time, age, gender. What we have will shine forth if we nurture it and believe and trust God and just sometimes patiently wait. So thank you for that. Rob, thank you for that, Dan. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in and just being a part of this community and engaging with us and chatting with us and sending in your comments and encouragements. It's just such a joy, and a great way to spend this holiday season. We hope that you will continue to tune in to Seeking Christmas and then join Dan and I. We'll be back next Tuesday to continue the conversation.
Oh,
Have a
here's
great
the
week,
email.
everyone. Oh,
Email's
yes.
right here.
Yeah. How could I forget?
Okay,
Oh, my
yes, okay,
Lord.
yes.
Dan showed you where it is. MuseCast
That's
at
right.
whchurch.org. Good
That's
job.
right. So, you guys.
See.